Handle Your Business, a weekly podcast discussing a little of this and a little of that. Handle Your Business appropriately blends serious topics with fun topics, all in an effort to help you have a good or better life. So join me, your host, Lady Lashley, and some amazing guests every Sunday at 5 p.m. to explore everything from financial management to dealing with relationship challenges. Put it in your calendar every Sunday from 5 p.m. Tune in to Handle Your Business for a very helpful half hour to get you ready for the week ahead. For more details, follow at Lady Lashley TT on Instagram and Facebook. Handle Your Business. Welcome to another episode of Handle Your Business with yours truly, Lady Lashley. Today I am chatting with a beautiful young lady by the name of Sasha Simmons. Hi, Sasha.
Hi, honored to be here.
Thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time out and joining me on this episode. We are going to be discussing the significance of a daddy's influence, right? And for those of you all listening to this podcast episode, Sasha is the daughter of the late Earl Simmons, whom the world knows as DMX. And this is not a podcast episode about DMX. We're talking with Sasha and her take on the significance of a daddy's influence. All right. So Sasha, just in terms of a little background information, of course, your dad, unfortunately, he passed away last April, I think April 9th it was. And the world got to know.
Yes.
The world got to know who you were because you put out an amazing tribute to your dad. If I'm not mistaken, on your Instagram, you started it off with saying legends never die. And that was really picked up. Condolences to you. We're getting close to that 1 year mark. But tell me, when you heard the topic, the significance of a daddy's influence, I know you told me you were excited and, you know, there's so much that you could say about it. But when you heard the topic, what did you think or what do you think about when you hear that?
It's a very, I think, sensitive topic, specifically for me because of who my father was. I think that, people want you to have certain thoughts about fatherhood, and because of the figure that he was to a lot of people, it's the same thing for me. But I think fatherhood it's something that's so important. I think it's so important, especially as a young woman. Like, I have a bunch of friends, and, you can see how it affects not having a father as present in your life. It's a very important thing, I think.
Right. And you are now 20 years old. Let's go back to maybe how far back you can remember from childhood. What was your relationship like with your dad at that time?
Well, when I was younger, he was living with us, very in and out a lot. But I think I was just very angry at the time, growing up. You just don't understand, why there's not more of a family unit. And it's very hurtful. It's very stressful. I was just angry with my father a lot. And eventually, when you get older, you know a lot more. Um, and, maybe not blame it on your mom as much. But I think that, yeah, it was hard growing up, but as I got older, at least I was able to establish at least a friendship. And I think that I was grateful for because, I just kind of figured like you're just going to have a distant relationship, but I'm glad that, we were at least able to get some type of relationship out of our friendship, if not when I was younger, at least when I was older and I could understand a little bit more where he was coming from, and he can understand like where I was coming from, and we can have those like hard conversations ourselves. I think they're really important. And I think a lot of fathers should have, they always expect the kids to reach out to them. And I think that a lot more fathers need to be doing a lot more when it comes to their kids and reaching out and, not being so scared to do so. I think fear runs a lot of that. And I think that if they would know that, the kid is actually, wanting them to reach out and wanting them to build a relationship, I think that, they would reach out a lot more, hopefully.
Okay, got you. Now you talk about being a bit angry when you were younger. Do you remember what age or age range that was? Is it like you were 5 years old, 10 years old?
Yeah, around from like literally from that time to that time, like from my adolescence when I was like 5 to like 10. Um, very just angry, very, very angry. And, you just don't understand like why can't he reach out to me? I think a lot of girls feel that way, a lot of women feel that way, even, being older. And I was just very upset, I think disappointed. It was an age where, I was going through what I was going through, just, being a teenager or being a preteen, and it was just a lot to deal with, and I just figured, he should be, speaking for all fathers, not just mine, but they should be the adults, and, like we're not, a pawn in nobody's game, when it comes
Right,
to relationships, and we're actual kids, we have feelings, and it's at the end of the day, even my mom always told me, it's not about our relationship, it's about you. I think that's how it should be always. It's not about, whether the parents are still together. I think that it's always about the kid and making sure that everything's, the best for the kid. So I felt that I wasn't getting that on his behalf. And I think that's what very much angered me growing up.
right,
And just the monumental things that they miss, you don't, it's not fun whenever a parent misses a very important moment in your life. So I think that, just growing up and seeing my mom kind of do all that, but having my father very much be alive and out there, it was very hard growing up. But yeah, I think that they need to really step up. I think they need to do
yeah.
better.
I got you, and that's the thing, because sometimes people may say, well, okay, you are the daughter of a famous individual, famous man, but as you said before, it's really the same. It doesn't matter if you're famous or not. When you're a child, what you're looking for is the presence of your father. When you talk about you expecting him to be more present, is there, and this is more so any fathers who are listening, they can perhaps get a sense of maybe what their child, who may be in a similar situation that you were in at that time, what are some of the possible thoughts that they may be having or how they may be feeling. So is it that you wanted like to have conversations, you wanted to play, you wanted to, go out? What did you feel you were missing apart from the absence? Let's say that he was there in the house with you more often. Is there a specific thing or set of things that you would have liked to have had happen?
Yeah, just more one-on-one time, and them just asking. It's so simple. It's just, like, how's your day? Or, how was school? Or, like, just showing up pretty much. Because, there's also a lot of absent fathers that are, in their daughters' lives the whole time and live in the same house, and they're just not there emotionally or mentally at all for their kids. So I think that that's also, an aspect of it. It doesn't matter if you're in the house or out the house. If you're present in that way, you have to be there emotionally for your kids. And, I think that's a department where they're lacking as well. And I don't think that it should be up to the child to, mend what the parent just refused to, they refuse to do anything about the relationship until
Right.
the child is obviously much older. Yeah, but just, be present and ask questions and, like, I don't know, seem interested in what they're talking about. And, it means a lot,
Right.
just paying
Let
attention.
me ask you this now. There was a really beautiful image and I think a video that your dad had put out of you and him. I think it was your 15th birthday, and you had a quinceanera, if I'm getting the pronunciation of that correct. Um, you just spoke about.
Yeah.
Right, and that looked really wonderful. So in listening to you talk, the first part of the first phase that you looked at would be that was between the age of 5 to 10. So if we were to go now to between the ages of 11 to 15, where you're getting, you're a preteen and then a teenager, in terms of navigating dating, liking boys or girls, or figuring out, what's going on, do you have any sort of feeling on the role that a daddy can play at that point, particularly for a young girl?
Yeah. Let's get into that. I mean, I'm an adult now, I'm 20, I'm not 15 or 14 anymore. I know my parents have their faults, but at this point, I live alone. It's up to, like, I'm responsible for my own happiness, and I can't sit here and be like, a lot of the things that my parents did shape who I look for and who I'm attracted to, but I can't sit there and blame them for everything in my life. That's just, you have to grow up eventually. But I will say that when I was, looking for love or looking for, people, and I like women, but when I had liked men, and when I was just looking for people, I would notice like these certain traits, and I just really, really wanted attention, like the attention that I wasn't getting at home. I just really wanted attention, and I wanted someone who just love me like unconditional. Like I just wanted the parents' love, from somebody that I was seeing. That unconditional support and just showing up, and which as it should be, but to a certain extent, there's only so much your partner can do, and there's a role that your parents have to fill, and I just felt like I was very much looking for that and putting up with a lot to keep that, and eventually it got to the point where I was just like, I don't really want that for myself. I don't, being toxic and having that toxic, and like I saw what I didn't want growing up very much, so I just don't plan to follow in those footsteps.
Let me just go a little take it into a different direction, in the sense that that's one aspect that you brought up. Definitely, when you're choosing a partner, whether or not, what the qualities in your partner may look like, and whether or not that factors into what you saw at home, who your parents were and their influence on you. But let's look at navigating dating. If I heard you correctly, you date women, yeah?
Yeah.
Right. So even in terms of that, do you feel as if a father, and this is generally speaking, you're kind of thinking as in terms of maybe what you wanted to have happen versus what actually happened. Do you feel as if a father has any role at all to play in even advising a daughter, young daughter, about dating, whether or not you're dating boys or dating girls? Just some of the things to help navigate the dating world, because it's not easy for anyone.
No, yeah, definitely. And I just think that, for example, I know like not having my dad personally affected how I saw myself and how I viewed my worth. And I carry that very much into dating. And I know it's different for a lot of people, but even subconsciously, I think that we carry these insecurities that we have. I think, I think fathers are there to, tell you obviously like, oh, like, don't date any boys that are like bad for you, da da da. Like, I don't know, just that, typical, I don't know, I think they build character as well in women, and, to have like a man that supports you. And I think that a lot of women don't get supported by men in just their day-to-day life. So I think having that first, at home, like that man that raised you and loves you and supports you, I think that it means a lot, and it carries very much into dating. And, I felt that, because I didn't have a father and because he wasn't around, that I felt that it had kind of diminished my worth. And I feel like that's why subconsciously, like I had put up a lot, when I was, dating, and, I thought that I just had to, because with my father, I had to keep reaching out, and I thought that's what I had to keep doing as well, to get someone to really like want to be with me. But I think it impacts a lot of girls, because that's the first, man
Right,
in your life, it should be. It should
right,
be. And,
right,
they're
right.
supposed to protect you and, kind of model what you would want to, eventually marry into as well. They should be the model for that. And I think that when you don't have that, it's very hurtful, and, it can cause you
Mhm.
to question yourself a lot.
Right. And then that's kind of like the standard story for many people. I myself, while it's slightly different to your experience, my father died when I was around 6 years old. And I've never really had a father figure growing up. But in hindsight, when I look back, I actually never even thought that I had um, missed out on a father figure. It's not until you start going through certain things then you realize how it affects you. So, in your case, even with the absence of your biological father so often, was there another or other individuals like uncles, cousins, stepfathers, friends, anybody that you saw in that same role, or anybody that perhaps helped out directly or indirectly? And you don't need to call names, we're just talking generally here.
Oh, definitely. Definitely my mom's brother and her stepfather. So my grandpa is what I, consider him to be. They definitely were they were the men roles in my life. They, it's still not the same, but they gave me, I think, enough to where I can, if I were to ever pick a man, I could say, I'd probably want one modeled after them. Yeah,
Right,
definitely
right.
had them in my life, but, it's still not the same as, having a dad in your life. And you, like you said, you don't really notice until, I mean, at first, you just mom, 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 that's what you're used to. And then you go out to school and you see certain things. And then when you get older, it kind of hurts watching, videos of dads with their daughters, and you're just like, oh, well, mine never did that. So it's a little different. But yeah, so I
Yeah,
think it's different. I think it's worse, not to say anything about what you had been through, but I think it's worse, knowing that they're out there and they're just actively not reaching out to you.
right.
um then, like my father now, well, he can't, he can't do anything now, but I think it was worse knowing that he was out there and just didn't bother to call me. Yeah, I think that's
Right.
worse for a lot of people when you just kind of know that they just don't care to
Yes,
do
it's like
something,
no
you
effort.
know?
You're the child and you're thinking, well, this person, my father isn't making an effort to actually talk to me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's worse.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. Did you have other siblings in your household? Do you have like a brother or sister in your household living with you? Not necessarily your dad's other children who didn't share the same mother, but in your household.
Yes, yeah, so I have a little brother. I have a little brother with my mom.
Okay, right.
Yeah, he's
Well, did he have an active relationship with his dad? And if so, did that have any impact on you, like just looking at that?
he didn't as well. And but he did have one with my father. So he very much met my father, and that was the whole thing. But
Right.
I think it affects him more than me, because I'm older now, but being a boy, um even my having my father, he wasn't even really that present. So I think that was a little something for him, but I think that not knowing his own father, which is another issue because his father actively as well, like we spoken, doesn't want to really be involved. And I think that, it's a little bit different for a younger boy. I think it affects them way, way more.
Right.
Obviously I think it affects everybody, but I think, him, not being able to, if it's just, he can't get everything that he needs from my mom. You know, I think that a father figure and like teaching him how to, you know, play sports, and you know, I think that's something that every little boy wants. And he has my uncle, but you know, it's very much, like I said, not the same. And you
Understood.
know, yeah, I think that for some time he was very sad about that. You know, they ask a lot of questions, and you know, I think a lot of the kids feel that it's their fault. A lot when we're younger, we feel like, well, maybe it's my fault. Like my parent isn't coming around. Like, why don't they like me? So I think that that's a phase that, you know, every kid kind of goes through sometimes when that happens.
Right. And when you had to look back at your brother's situation and his phases, did that at any time cause you to reminisce on your own past situation? You know, just thinking about what he's going through?
Yeah, I do think he's a little bit um more sensitive to the situation than I am, just having meeting my dad and then having him, you know, pass away. But I think I was a lot more angrier than, you know, my brother. And you know, he's a kid, and it's a little bit different for him. But yeah, I having, you know, seen my father, you know, make certain life choices and what it was, I just think that I was a little bit more angrier towards the situation than my little brother per se.
Right. Now let's maybe flip to a time when you were perhaps less angry, if there was a time like that, when you actually reconnected with your dad again, and you started having that friendship as you described it. Can you explain what that felt like and what impact that had on you?
It was when I was a little bit older, when I could start going, like when my mom didn't have to, you know, go places with me as much, and I was older and able to kind of speak out for myself. And it made it made a very big impact. It made a very big impact. I think like having that relationship with my father, when I was older, and being able to talk to him, and you know, from a different, like, okay, like let's put aside, like, you know, the fact that I'm upset and the fact that you feel guilty, and you know, like let's really get to know each other. I think if I wouldn't have had that, at least um I probably would have been a little bit more affected by his death than I was. I still think there was a lot of things that needed to be said, but I think that having that communication with him, when I was older, and being able to really, you know, get to know him and have him get to know me, even if it's like, you know, it wasn't that late, or like, you know, in life, I wasn't, you know, already grown with kids, and he was trying to reach out, you know, as long as he had done it, and you know, it
Right.
happened, I think that I can at least take that with me and say, okay, well, like, you know, at least that happened, and at least he tried in that sense. And I think having
Right.
that conversation, even though it was mostly me reaching out, you know, but that was just my father. I think he was just really bad with his phone. Like he would reach out, but I wasn't too hurt over that. But you know, I think having that and talking to him when, you know, I was older really did help the relationship a lot. And, you know, you have to forgive people eventually, you know, for yourself. It's not about
Mhm.
them. You know, I couldn't be, I mean, I knew he wasn't really going to change. So I can't really stay upset with somebody like that, you know, for the rest of my life, because it wouldn't have done anything. And you know, he ended up passing away, so I really wouldn't have done anything if I had just hadn't spoken to him, and just was really upset my whole life. And you know, when I was older, I was able to voice my demands a little bit better, and you
Right.
know, be a little bit more. It wasn't going through my mom anymore, and it wasn't my mom saying like, "Hey, you need to be here." It was more like, "Hey," like me reaching out and being on the phone, being like, "Yeah, you need to be here right now." You know, I think that you know, it wasn't the excuse of like, "Oh, I don't want to talk to your mom." It was like, now it's me talking to you. You know.
So if you go back to, let's say, that first time that you reached out or he reached out after a long period, like when you were just, you know, bonding again, if you can remember what that was. Do you remember how that went, and maybe, you know, what you felt? And I'm asking you this in terms of, for a father or even a young person listening that may want to call their father, or the father may want to call the child, reach out to have a connection. What does that first step feel like?
I just I think it's very nerve-wracking on both ends. I think because at the end of the day, you know, if you haven't had your father in your life for a long time and you're grown now, I think you two are different people. So I think it's very nerve-wracking. It's not like you're a kid anymore, and you know, you have all these very high hopes for them. I think it's very different as you get older. And I feel like the longer that you take to reach out to your kid, um, it gets harder. It gets very much harder. And, you know, people are their own people and they have their personalities and they feel how they feel about things. And, you know, you can't expect somebody that's grown, you know, as a father, you can't expect, you know, somebody already living their life to just drop everything and, you know, run towards a relationship when this whole time you could have done the same thing. So I think it's very nerve-wracking on both ends, but I think that, you know, I think that's what stops a lot of people as well, like the nerves. And, you know, I had my father tell me once, well, I didn't know if you were going to pick up the phone. And it's like they just don't take that chance just because of fear. And, you know, I think that if they just maybe just go for it, and even if you get rejected, like I think it just means a lot for the kid just knowing that you're trying. And you know, I think that you should be consistent when you do try. You know, it's not going to be like a lot of fathers get upset the first time and you know the kid doesn't want to talk to them and they're like, well, why? I'm their father. Like that doesn't, you know, respect has to be earned. And you know, at that point you had done nothing to earn it. And I think that a lot of fathers are just scared and they need to step up and just stop being scared. You know, it's a child. You know, you can just reach out and, you know, don't get upset when it's not the reaction that you wanted. You know, just keep being persistent, give them space and just listen, you know. That's all I really ask for.
Right. And in terms of like, sometimes in our space, something like saying I love you to a child is not so common. Is that something you heard from your dad? Is that something you wanted to hear from your father? What are your thoughts on a father, a dad saying to a child, I love you?
I think dads need to, I especially because I'm half Mexican. So in Mexican culture sometimes there's a lot of like machismo, which is like, you know, you have to be tough and you know all that. And I think a lot of fathers don't say I love you to even their sons or their daughters. Like it's, I think fathers need to get in the habit of saying I love you more, you know. I think for me personally, I felt that, you know, even when my father did tell me, I didn't believe it. I was very much like, no, you don't love me. You know, you're just saying it, but you're not really proving it. So I think it's a big responsibility. I think if fathers are gonna say that they love their kids, they should prove it as well, you know? Not just do things and expect the kid to know that, oh yeah, they love me because they put a roof over my head. And you know, there's a lot of like emotional, you know, a lot of emotional there's a lot a father can give to a child in saying I love you, you know, but there's a lot more that they can do in proving it, I think.
Let's talk a little bit about the proving it. In your opinion, how does a father prove that he loves you? Apart from just saying it, what can a father do from your experience, or what were you looking for as proof?
Showing up. I was looking for him to show up, you know. If you were in the same city and I had a graduation, you know, you should have been there. You know, it's if you invite them to something that, you know, like really interests you, you know.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's you know, we don't want, I mean, gifts would be nice, but we don't expect, you know, just money thrown at us every year. Like we just want you to talk to us and show us things that you like to do as well. We just want to feel included. And, I think a lot of people look up to their parents a lot. And I think a lot of parents don't realize that even, in the things that they enjoy. And, we want to be a part of that. And we want to, I don't know, like my dad was very into, music, obviously. And I very much would listen to him talk and you feel inspired. And I just feel like a lot of parents should really take that into consideration. I think, you know, a lot of fathers need to, it's not that hard to prove it. I just think that they think it's just very one way to do so. And, it just depends on your child. You have to see what interests them, like what are they telling you? Like, do they want you to show up more? Do they want you to ask about them more? Like, I think there's a lot you can do to show up for your child.
Right.
Besides just sending money.
Right. Yeah, that's a big thing. And I'm happy you said that because it is something that we really see a lot in terms of sometimes men feel like their role is to provide financially and emotionally they're not that actively trying on that end. Maybe because of what you said in the beginning, it could be some fear, it could be simply not knowing how to. But I suppose as a child, what you're asking for is for the father, for the dad to try, to make it more than about the material things, the presents and the actual money, but you want your daddy there with you, talking to you and involved in your life, if I'm hearing you correctly.
Yeah.
All right.
Yep.
So before we wrap up, there's one thing that you mentioned in the beginning that I just want to touch on a little bit now. In terms of sometimes the parents, your daddy and your mommy, may not be having the best possible relationship. And that affects, especially with men, how they reach out to their children. Do you have a view on that? Like, do you, how can it really work? Let's say if your dad said, well, I don't want to talk to your mom right now, or they're having an argument. And of course, for him to talk to you, especially if you're younger, it would be based on how your mom reacts. What would you say to some mothers with respect to trying to allow for a father to talk to their child, even when their relationship isn't so good?
It depends because there's two different points of views from that. It could be that the mom is like, oh, I'm not gonna let you see the kid, and for arguing, which I think is very messed up. I don't think the child should have to. There's a place you guys can be cordial for the kid. I think it's always about the kid. But I think like in my situation, a lot of situations I've seen, a lot of the dads feel like, well, if I'm not with you, why do I have to visit the kid as often? Or why do I have to see the kid? Like if I'm not sleeping with you, why is that a thing? And I think that, if I were to be able to speak to all these men that do that, I think that they need to grow some balls because it has nothing to do with, you can go and find somebody else. It's about the child at that point. When you decide to have a child, it's not about what you want anymore specifically. If the relationship doesn't work out, then it doesn't work out, but I think that just somebody has to be more mature and just be like, what, it's just, this is for the kids, like it's not about us, and whether or not we sleep together. I think that should not even be a factor, because people think that the kids don't pick up on things. Like kids are very smart. I knew my father didn't want to see me. I knew why. So when I was younger, so it's just eventually when you get older, it's a different relationship. But you very much notice things as a
Right.
kid. So if the fathers are okay with their kids kind of knowing that information and kind of having a little resentment, because I had resentment with it. Like that's why I was very angry. And they think that we don't notice that, we don't pay attention. And my mom was, I think all moms though should let the child have a relationship with their father. I don't think the mom should sit there and tell them bad things about their father. My mom, regardless of their relationship, had always said your relationship with your father is your relationship with him. That's literally, I'm not a mom, but that's my only advice I would give. I think that eventually, like, if the dad is just, a piece of shit, excuse my language, very much the kid can obviously make their own decisions and, choose not to have their father in their life. But I think when they're younger, the mom should let them, or their father should let them, just have their own relationship with that parent. It shouldn't be
Right.
about what they're going at that time. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And as we close off, you said that when you were younger, you knew, you picked up on things, and you're saying that the children can be very perceptive. Did you actually have a conversation with your dad about all of that in terms of when you all bonded again? Did you have that conversation to say, listen, I knew that this is what it was at that time, and this is how I felt?
Yeah, very much when I was older, but I don't know, my father was I don't know. I think he felt bad a lot. So I think in me telling him this, it was just kind of like, well, I didn't mean it that way, very defensive, but I know it wasn't coming from like trying to like silence my voice or like not taking into consideration what I'm saying. I think that he just felt really bad about it, and didn't know how to communicate that. Yeah, and I think that's just how he felt about it. And
Right.
he's obviously gonna tell me no when that's not how it was, but it is what it is at this point, and that's how it
Right.
was, and that's okay. I'm an adult now.
Mhm.
You eventually have to learn how to not sit there and be so upset about that. You can't sit there and wonder your whole life, like, why did he do that? If it's not something that would warrant a happy reaction. It's not something that we could look down years later and be like, have a chat about it, and me be happy about the situation that was happening. But
Right.
it happened, and you know, he's gone now, but when we talked about it, I'm glad that we at least kind of cleared the air, and at least he knew how I felt. I think I would have regretted it more if I just never said anything. And I feel like a lot of kids, I was on TikTok and I had come across this video, and it was talking about how a lot of kids don't get to speak to their dads and their fathers, and a lot of the comments were very much saying the same thing, like, oh, well, now it's too late, and I wish he would have reached out, or when he did, like, I wish I wasn't so angry. And it's very hard because, and especially in my situation, a lot of other people's situations, that your parents are very much struggling and you don't know when you're going to see them again. But it's very hard because you have to set those boundaries and, make sure that your feelings are taken into consideration as well. So it's very much hard for, I think, all parties. It's very hard for the both of us, as well. But
Yeah.
we just have to get through it.
Thank you so much, Sasha. I like your positive mindset on this, and I hope that whenever someone listens to this podcast episode, the whole point of it is to try and add a positive perspective, of course, a realistic perspective. Yeah, so thank you very much, Sasha Simmons. Again, the idea is that when you listen to this podcast, you would be able to handle your business.
Handle Your Business, a weekly podcast discussing a little of this and a little of that. Handle Your Business appropriately blends serious topics with fun topics, all in an effort to help you have a good or better life. So join me, your host, Lady Lashley, and some amazing guests every Sunday at 5 p.m. to explore everything from financial management to dealing with relationship challenges. Put it in your calendar every Sunday from 5 p.m. Tune in to Handle Your Business for a very helpful half hour to get you ready for the week ahead. For more details, follow at Lady Lashley TT on Instagram and Facebook. Handle Your Business.